May 19th, 1944. 400 hours. North Atlantic waters, 200 miles east of the Admiralty Islands. Lieutenant Commander John Williamson stands at the sound tower aboard USS England, watching green phosphorescent traces crawl across the sonar display. Below them, at 325 feet, Japanese submarine I-16 maneuvers desperately through the darkness. For the fourth time in 2 hours, Williamson has fired the Hedgehog, and for the fourth time, silence. No explosions, no contact, just the quiet splash of 24 projectiles entering the water, then nothing. The Japanese commander below knows something his Allied pursuers don't yet understand. He's learned to survive depth charge attacks through 2 years of Pacific warfare. He knows the pattern. Listen for the destroyer's propellers. Dive deep when you hear the rush of water overhead. Wait for the thunder of explosions set to detonate at predetermined depths. Survive the shockwaves. Surface when the enemy moves on. It has worked dozens of times before, but this time is different. This time, the explosions never come unless the weapon hits. And when it hits, there is no second chance. What I-16's commander doesn't know, what very few submariners in either the German or Japanese navies fully understand in 1944, is that the Allies have deployed a weapon that fundamentally changes the mathematics of submarine warfare. The Hedgehog mortar carries a 35-pound charge of Torpex explosive. It fires forward 200 yards ahead of the attacking ship, and it only detonates on direct contact with the submarine's hull. Miss by 3 feet, nothing. Miss by 3 inches, silence. But hit the pressure hull, and the contact fuse triggers an explosion that punches a 3 to 4 inch hole through hardened steel. At 300 feet depth, seawater enters at 400 gallons per minute. The submarine has perhaps 90 seconds before catastrophic flooding makes survival impossible. German U-boat commanders called it Der Lautlostod, the silent death, because unlike depth charges, which announced their presence with massive underwater detonations, whether they hit or not, the Hedgehog gave no warning. If you heard the explosion, you were already dying. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you're watching from today. The story of how this weapon came to terrorize the submarine forces of both Germany and Japan begins not in a naval laboratory, but in a requisitioned country house in Buckinghamshire, England. The Firs, Whitchurch, 1940. The sign outside reads, Directorate of Miscellaneous Weapons Development. Insiders call it the Wheezers and Dodgers, for the unconventional collection of inventors, engineers, and what the Royal Navy establishment considers mad scientists working inside. Commander Charles Goodeve runs the operation. His deputy, Major Millis Jeffress, designs weapons that make traditional naval officers profoundly uncomfortable. The concept emerges from a problem that has killed thousands of Allied sailors. When a destroyer detects a submarine and begins its attack run, it must pass directly over the target to drop depth charges off the stern. But the moment the destroyer begins its high-speed approach, its ASTIC sonar loses contact. The sound beam cannot maintain lock on a target directly ahead during a charging approach. The submarine, invisible to sonar in those final 30 seconds, executes evasive maneuvers, turns 90 degrees, dives at emergency angles, changes speed. By the time depth charges detonate, the submarine is elsewhere. Traditional depth charges carry 300 pounds of explosive. They sink at 9 feet per second. They detonate at preset depths, 150 feet, 300 feet, based on the operator's guess about where the submarine might be. If the guess is correct and the submarine remains in the kill zone, the hydrostatic shock waves can crack the pressure hull. But most guesses are wrong. Statistics from 1940 through early 1942 show brutal efficiency numbers. British depth charge attacks, 5,174 confirmed prosecutions against submarines, 85.5 kills, a ratio of 60 to 1. For every 60 attacks, fewer than 2 submarines destroyed. The U-boat force is being built faster than the Royal Navy can sink them. In 1941 alone, German submarines sent 471 Allied merchant ships to the ocean floor, 2 0.5 million tons of supplies, food, ammunition, fuel. Britain imports 60 million tons annually. By March 1941, stockpiles have dropped to 6 weeks. If the U-boats maintain their current kill rate for another 6 months, Britain will face starvation or surrender. The Admiralty tries everything. Modified depth charges, new attack patterns, better training, longer-range aircraft, improved sonar frequencies. Nothing fundamentally changes the mathematics. The submarine still has 30 seconds of blind time to escape. The depth charge still detonates, whether it's near the target or not. And every explosion creates turbulence that blinds sonar for 15 to 30 minutes, allowing the submarine to slip away in the chaos. Jefferies approaches the problem differently. Stop trying to predict where the submarine will be. Stop dropping charges blindly. Instead, fire projectiles forward while the submarine is still visible on sonar. Make the weapon explode only on contact. Turn the ocean into a binary system. Hit or miss, no middle ground. The concept violates every principle of traditional depth charge doctrine. Naval officers have spent 20 years perfecting procedures based on area saturation. Drop enough explosives in the general vicinity and the cumulative shockwaves will damage the submarine. Jefferies proposes the opposite. Throw small, contact-fused bombs directly at the target. One hit, one kill. The engineering challenges are immense. First problem, the fuse. It must survive the impact with the ocean surface at terminal velocity, 30 feet per second. It must arm itself after water entry. It must remain armed while sinking 200, 300, 400 feet. And it must detonate reliably on contact with steel, but not on contact with a passing school of fish or a piece of floating debris. Jefferies tests 17 different fuse designs. Most detonate prematurely or fail to detonate at all. The solution comes from a mechanic's observation about propeller-driven timers. A small propeller begins spinning the moment the projectile hits water. After rotating through a specific number of revolutions, it arms the contact fuse. The projectile sinks vertically, nose down. If it strikes a submarine's hull, the fuse crushes against steel and fires. If it reaches the ocean floor, it embeds harmlessly in mud. Second problem, the launcher. How do you fire 24 projectiles simultaneously in a pattern that creates maximum probability of hitting a maneuvering submarine? Jefferies develops the spigot mortar principle. Instead of a barrel, each projectile sits on a steel rod, a spigot. The explosive propelling charge fits around the rod. When fired, the charge detonates inside the projectile's hollow tail, launching it forward and upward. 24 spigots arranged in rows, angled outward. When fired together, the projectiles arc through the air and splash into the ocean in a circular pattern, 130 feet in diameter. Third problem, pattern geometry. A submarine traveling at 6 knots submerged covers approximately 300 feet per minute. In the 9 seconds it takes Hedgehog projectiles to sink to 200 feet, the submarine moves 45 feet. If the submarine is turning or changing depth, the displacement increases. Jefferies sets up a test in his workshop, a roulette wheel with a scale model submarine at the center. He and his team throw miniature projectiles at the model for days, recording hit percentages for different patterns. The optimal configuration places the projectiles in an elliptical spread, 140 feet by 120 feet. Even if the submarine executes a 90-degree turn at maximum speed, at least 4 projectiles should cross its path. 4 hits, 65 pounds each with 35 pounds of Torpex, through the pressure hull. The submarine doesn't survive. The prototype launcher assembles at the Firs in early 1941. It looks absurd. A steel cradle holding six rows of spigots sticking up at various angles, resembling nothing so much as the quills on a hedgehog's back. Someone makes the comparison. The name sticks. May 1941, Liverpool, Poole Bay. HMS Westcott conducts the first operational test against a known shipwreck on the ocean floor. The Hedgehog fires. 24 projectiles spiral into the air, forming a perfect ellipse. They splash into the water 200 yards ahead. 8 seconds later, multiple explosions. Direct hits on the wreck. The system works. The Admiralty authorizes production. By January 1942, 100 Royal Navy destroyers and corvettes carry Hedgehog launchers. The first submarine kill comes in November 1942, 10 months after installation begins. Initial success rates hover around 5%, barely better than depth charges. The weapon meets fierce resistance from ship captains. Traditional depth charges produce massive explosions, towering geysers of white water, thunder that rattles the deck plating. Crews can see and hear evidence that they've attacked the enemy. Hedgehog misses produce nothing, no explosions, no visible results, just silence. Psychologically, it feels like failure even when the attack was executed perfectly. The submarine evaded, but there's no dramatic display to indicate effort was made. Captains revert to depth charges. They trust what they know. The loud, violent weapon that creates visible evidence of combat, even if it rarely kills submarines. By early 1943, Hedgehog-equipped ships use the weapon so infrequently that the Admiralty issues a directive. Commanding officers are ordered to report why they did not employ Hedgehog on underwater contacts. The results cite crew inexperience and low confidence in the weapon. The Directorate of Miscellaneous Weapons Development sends an officer to Londonderry, Northern Ireland, where Atlantic convoy escorts are based. He delivers presentations, shows attack footage, explains the mathematics, demonstrates that one Hedgehog hit kills submarines that survive hundreds of depth charge explosions. Gradually, confidence builds. Captain learns from captain. Success stories spread. By mid-1943, kill rates climb. 1 in 10 attacks results in a confirmed submarine sinking. By early 1944, 1 in 5. Compare this to depth charges. 1 in 80 attacks results in a kill. The Hedgehog is 16 times more effective. But effectiveness is measured in more than kill ratios. The weapon changes submarine tactics fundamentally. When a U-boat detects depth charges, the commander knows the pattern. Dive deep, execute evasive turns, wait for the explosions to pass. The submarine survives through movement and depth. When a U-boat encounters Hedgehog, there is no pattern to evade. The projectiles fall silently. The submarine cannot hear them approaching, and they explode only on contact, which means the submarine cannot rely on depth alone for protection. Diving to 400, 500, 600 feet doesn't guarantee safety. The Hedgehog reaches the submarine before it completes the dive. German Submarine Command notices the change. By May 1943, Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz issues new directives to all U-boats at sea. Recent losses indicate Allied depth charge tactics have evolved. Boats report charges detonating at multiple depths simultaneously. Commander reports coordination between surface vessels. Current evasion protocols may be inadequate. Upon detection, execute immediate deep dive to maximum safe depth. Maintain silent running, minimum 45 minutes. Multiple depth settings confirmed. Shallow evasion compromised. The directive essentially admits that German submarine doctrine, perfected over 4 years of Atlantic warfare, no longer works. The weapon that changes everything weighs 65 pounds, carries 35 pounds of torpex, sinks at 23 feet per second, and explodes only when it hits. In the Pacific Theater, the weapon arrives aboard American destroyer escorts in late 1942. U.S. Navy designations, Mark 10 and Mark 11 Hedgehog, functionally identical to the British design, reverse Lend-Lease. Britain sends America the weapon that will help win the submarine war. But having the weapon and using it effectively are different problems. American destroyer escorts in 1943 face the same learning curve as British ships. Crews don't trust the silent weapon. Captains prefer traditional depth charges. Success rates remain low until the Combat Information Center becomes standard. The CIC, a dedicated space where radar operators, sonar operators, and fire control coordinators work together, processing tactical information and feeding targeting data to the bridge. With CIC coordination, Hedgehog accuracy improves dramatically. By mid-1944, American destroyer escorts routinely sink submarines on the first or second attack. The weapon that submarine commanders learn to fear most appears innocuous in photographs. A steel frame on the foredeck, rows of cylindrical projectiles, no visible menace. But below the surface, it's hunting with mathematical precision. May 18th, 1944, Purvis Bay, Solomon Islands. 3 destroyer escorts receive orders. USS England, USS George, USS Ryby. Their mission, intercept Japanese submarine I-16, reported heading south from Truk with Supply S for the isolated garrison at Buin on Bougainville's southern coast. American codebreakers have intercepted and decrypted the submarine's scheduled delivery of rice. The three ships depart that afternoon. Commander Hamilton Haynes commands from USS George, Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton captains USS England. But the officer who will make history is England's executive officer, Lieutenant John Williamson. Pendleton practices an unusual command style. He gives few direct orders. Instead, he allows Williamson freedom to prepare the ship and conduct attacks. The delegation works because Williamson is obsessed with training. Since England's commissioning in December 1943, the crew has drilled constantly. Hedgehog attacks, sonar tracking, fire control procedures, hours of repetition until every sailor knows his role perfectly. The ship's reputation is taut ship, equipment maintained flawlessly, procedures executed precisely, confidence earned through preparation. May 19th, 1341 hours. England's sonar detects I-16 at 1,650 yards. The submarine begins evasive maneuvers immediately. Williamson orders the attack. First Hedgehog salvo miss. I-16 turns sharply and increases depth. Second attack miss. Third attack miss. The Japanese commander is skilled. He follows England's course, staying in the destroyer's wake where sonar has difficulty maintaining contact. Fourth attack miss. 4 attacks, 96 Hedgehog projectiles, 0 hits. The crew's confidence wavers. Williamson doesn't. He analyzes the sonar plot, calculates the submarine's probable maneuvering pattern, adjusts the attack angle. 14:33 hours. Fifth attack. England releases 24 Hedgehogs. They arc into the air, splash down 200 yards ahead. 8 seconds of silence. Then 4, perhaps 6 detonations. Muffled thumps from 300 feet below. The crew cheers. The sound changes. A massive underwater explosion. England's fantail lifts 6 inches out of the water, then slams back down. Men are knocked off their feet. The cheering stops. The final blast was not Hedgehog. That was I-16's magazine detonating as flooding seawater reached the torpedo room. 200 tons of submarine, 76 meters long, breaking apart under pressure. 97 men dying in darkness and cold. The crew stands silent. They've just won. But victory doesn't feel like cheering anymore. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Debris surfaces 20 minutes later. Planks of varnished wood, bottle corks with Japanese lettering, 1 chopstick, a 75-pound bag of rice confirming the submarine's supply mission. By morning, an oil slick covers 3 square miles. Commander Haynes reports the kill to Admiral William Halsey, Commander 3rd Fleet. The confirmation arrives within hours. Well done. But there are more submarines in the area. American intelligence has intercepted Japanese orders. Admiral Suemu Toyoda, commanding the Imperial Japanese Navy's combined fleet, has established a submarine picket line. 7 submarines stretched from Truk Island in the Carolines to west of Manus in the Admiralty Islands. Their mission, early warning. Detect the next American offensive, report fleet movements, attack if possible. The submarines are I-16, already sunk, plus RO-104, RO-105, RO-106, RO-108, RO-18, and RO-1. Positioned at intervals across the route American forces have used twice before, Toyoda believes his bases are covered. He doesn't yet know that American codebreakers have read his entire operational plan. Halsey sees an opportunity. Instead of avoiding the picket line, destroy it. Roll up the line from one end to the other. 3 destroyer escorts against 7 submarines. Unusual tactics, but the Hedgehog gives surface ships an advantage they've never had before. The submarine cannot hide in depth. May 22, 0350 hours. USS George detects RO-106 on radar at 7 miles. The submarine is on the surface, charging batteries. George illuminates the target with searchlights. RO-106 crash dives immediately. George fires Hedgehog at 0415. Miss. England regains sonar contact at 0425. First attack miss. The submarine is deep, maneuvering evasively. 0501 hours. England's second Hedgehog salvo. Multiple detonations, breaking up noises audible through the sonar. A large underwater explosion at sunrise. Heavy oil slick with debris. RO-106. Sunk. 56 crew lost. 1 kill by George and England combined. May 23rd. The 3 destroyer escorts form a search line 16,000 yards between ships. They sweep north, hunting the next submarine in Toyota's picket line. 0600 hours. USS Raby detects Row 104 on radar. Sonar contact follows at 0610. Raby fires 4 Hedgehog attacks between 0617 and 0800. All miss. USS George takes over. 4 more Hedgehog attacks, all miss. 8 attacks, 192 projectiles. The submarine evades every salvo. Lieutenant Williamson, aboard England, studies the sonar plot. RO-104 is executing a specific pattern. Diving deep on each attack, then surfacing slightly to regain speed. Predictable rhythm. He calculates the intercept. 0834 hours, England fires. Williamson estimates 10 to 12 detonations. The submarine's breaking up noises are immediate. Bulkheads collapsing, air escaping, flooding compartments. 3 minutes later, major explosion. Debris and oil surface at 10:45. RO-104 destroyed. The pattern continues. May 24th, 0150 hours. USS George detects RO-116 on radar. England makes sonar contact at 0150. 0214 hours. First Hedgehog attack, 3 to 5 detonations, breaking up noises, but no large explosion. Row 116 settles to the bottom, with hull breached, flooding slowly. By sunrise, the oil slick covers several square miles, all 56 crew lost. 3 submarines in 3 days. England has fired Hedgehog on every kill. May 26th. The destroyer escorts head toward Manus for resupply. Hedgehog projectiles must be reloaded. Food and fuel replenished. En route, they receive orders. Another submarine contact. Intelligence places RO-108 near their projected course. Change mission. Hunt the submarine. USS Raby detects RO-108 on radar at 2300 hours. Surface contact. The submarine dives before the destroyers can close. England makes sonar contact at 2310 hours. The submarine is deep. 600 feet near crush depth, Williamson slows England to 10 knots. Silent approach. The submarine cannot hear the destroyer's propellers at low speed. 23 hours. England fires 12 Hedgehog projectiles, exactly half her remaining supply. Detonations from 250 feet. The submarine breaks apart immediately. RO-108. 58 crew, gone. 4 submarines in 6 days. England has sunk them all. The crew is exhausted. Adrenaline only carries you so far. They reach Manus, reload Hedgehogs, resupply, sleep. The ship departs 24 hours later. Orders: return to the picket line, find the remaining submarines. May 30th, 0156 hours. USS Hazelwood, escorting carrier Hoggett Bay, detects RO-105 on radar. Commander Haynes orders multiple ships to prosecute. USS George, USS Raby, USS Spangler, even Hazelwood herself. They hunt RO-105 for 25 hours. 23 separate Hedgehog attacks. Everyone misses. RO-105's commander is Captain Ryonosuke Ueno, division leader of Submarine Division 51. Highly experienced. He knows every evasion tactic. Kick the rudder. Create turbulence. Confuse the sonar. Go deep, go shallow, change course constantly, and never establish a pattern. For an entire day, he outmaneuvers 4 American warships. Haynes keeps England on patrol elsewhere. He's testing his other ships, giving them opportunity to score their own kill. But after 25 hours, nothing works. RO-105 remains elusive. Finally, dawn on May 31st. Haynes radios England. Oh, hell, go ahead, England. 0700 hours. Admiral Halsey sends warning. Japanese aircraft reported in the area. All ships prepare to withdraw. Pendleton requests permission for one final attack. Approved. One shot. 0736 hours. Williamson fires. 6 to 10 detonations. 5 minutes later, major explosion. Oil and debris surface. RO-105 sunk. Ueno and his entire crew lost. 6 submarines. 12 days. USS England has established a record that remains unbroken 80 years later. No single ship in naval history has ever matched this performance. The news reaches Tokyo within 48 hours. Admiral Toyoda's submarine picket line has been completely destroyed. 7 submarines deployed. 7 submarines lost. Row 117 sunk by American patrol aircraft on May 20th. The other 6 eliminated by surface ships. 5 of them by a single destroyer escort most Japanese naval officers have never heard of. The strategic implications are immediate and catastrophic. Toyoda had positioned the picket line to provide early warning of American fleet movements. Without warning, he cannot position his battleships and carriers for the decisive engagement he's been planning. He must guess where the Americans will strike next. His guess is wrong. On May 27th, he moves his fleet toward the Palau Islands, convinced that's where the American offensive will materialize. 2 weeks later, American forces invade Saipan, Tinian, and Guam in the Marianas. Toyoda's fleet is out of position. The decisive battle he orchestrated never happens on his terms, but the greater impact is psychological. Japanese submarine doctrine in 1944 assumes that deep diving provides safety from American anti-submarine weapons. Conventional depth charges have maximum settings of 600 feet. Type 7 and Type 9 U-boats have test depths of 750 feet. Japanese submarines have similar capabilities. Go deep enough, survive long enough. The American destroyer will eventually lose contact and move on. The Hedgehog destroys that assumption. Contact-fused projectiles have no depth limit. They reach the submarine wherever it goes. And because they only explode on direct hit, the submarine cannot use cumulative damage as a metric for survival. Either the Hedgehog hits and the submarine dies, or it misses and the submarine has no information about how close the attack came. German U-boat commanders experienced the same revelation. By mid-1943, U-boat losses climb steeply. 41 submarines sunk in May 1943 alone. A month German submariners remember as Black May. The Kriegsmarine withdraws boats from the North Atlantic entirely. New tactics emphasize avoiding contact rather than fighting through depth charge attacks. A U-boat commander's diary recovered after the war describes the experience. Depth charges we understand. The explosions tell us how close the enemy came. We count detonations, calculate danger, make decisions. But this new weapon, it falls silently if we hear nothing. Did they miss? Or did the bombs not explode? We cannot know. Then suddenly, without warning, the hull ruptures. Water floods the forward compartment. We have 90 seconds. Nothing trains you for this. No doctrine prepares you. You are alive. Then you are dying. The transition is immediate. The mathematics that Jeffress calculated in 1941 prove accurate in combat. One Hedgehog hit through the pressure hull at 300 feet depth. Water enters at 400 gallons per minute. The submarine's internal volume, approximately 20,000 cubic feet for a Type 7 U-boat, at 400 gallons per minute, 53 cubic feet per minute. The submarine is 75% flooded in 4.5 minutes. Long before that, critical systems fail. Electrical panels short, ballast control is lost, trim becomes impossible. The submarine either plunges to crush depth or emergency surfaces into gunfire. Statistics compiled by the Royal Navy in 1945 show the weapon's effectiveness over time. 1942, first year of deployment. Hedgehog attacks, 47. Confirmed kills, 3. Success rate, 6%. 1943, second year. Attacks, 112. Kills, 18. Success rate, 16%. 1944, third year. Attacks, 86. Kills, 21. Success rate, 24%. 1945. Final months. Attacks 23, kills 5, success rate 22%, total 268 Hedgehog attacks during World War II. 47 confirmed submarine kills, overall success rate 17.5%. Compare with depth charges, 5,174 attacks, 85.5 kills, success rate 1.5%. The Hedgehog is nearly 12 times more effective than the weapon it supplements, but aggregate statistics miss individual stories. USS Eugene E. Elmore versus U-549, May 29, 1944. U-549, a Type 9C submarine equipped with schnorkel, allowing extended submerged operations. Captain Lieutenant Detlev Krankenhagen commands. Experienced, competent. His boat has been at sea for 15 days, hunting American convoys in the North Atlantic. USS Elmore destroyer escort detects U-549 on sonar. The submarine is deep, running silent at 650 feet, below standard depth charge range. Elmore is equipped with Type 144 sonar, extremely sensitive, range under ideal conditions, 3,000 yards, and Elmore carries Hedgehog. The engagement unfolds methodically. Elmore maintains sonar contact, tracks the submarine for 40 minutes without attacking. Krankenhagen knows he's been detected. He's deep enough that conventional depth charges cannot reach him. His doctrine tells him to maintain silent running, wait for the destroyer to lose contact, or exhaust its weapons. He doesn't understand that Elmore isn't using conventional weapons. Lieutenant Commander G.L. Conkey, commanding Elmore, integrates sonar data directly into Hedgehog fire control. He doesn't guess the submarine's position. He tracks it continuously, calculates exact depth and bearing. At 1600 hours, he fires. 24 projectiles land in a precise pattern around U-549's position. Multiple detonations. The submarine's pressure hull ruptures in 3 locations. Flooding is catastrophic and immediate. U-549 attempts emergency surface. She breaks the surface at a steep angle. Bow first. Elmore opens fire with all available guns, 5-inch main battery, 40mm Bofors, 20mm Oerlikon. The submarine settles back, sinking stern first. 57 crew lost. Krankenhagen believed depth would save him. The Hedgehog proved otherwise. British destroyer HMS Vanoc versus U-100, March 17th, 1941. This kill predates Hedgehog, but it's relevant because U-100's commander is Joachim Schepke, Germany's second highest-scoring U-boat ace. 41 merchant ships destroyed. Schepke survives until 1941 using superior tactics and aggressive night surface attacks. He dies because depth charge doctrine evolves. By 1944, evolved doctrine includes Hedgehog. The weapon's psychological impact extends beyond kill ratios. Submarines survive through stealth and depth. Take away depth as protection, and submarines become exponentially more vulnerable. U-boat commanders in late 1944 and early 1945 report heightened anxiety levels. They cannot predict whether the next attack will employ conventional depth charges or Hedgehog. Conventional charges give warning. Hedgehog gives none. The uncertainty erodes confidence. Crew morale suffers. Patrol effectiveness declines. By early 1945, German U-boat command issues standing orders. Avoid contact with Allied escorts when possible. If detected, dive to maximum depth immediately. Do not attempt to fight through attacks. Survival is the priority. The aggressive doctrine that dominated 1940 through 1943 is abandoned. Japanese submarine command reaches similar conclusions. After the destruction of Toyota's picket line, Japanese submarines operate with extreme caution. Avoid areas with known American destroyer escort presence. Never surface during daylight. If detected, evade rather than engage. Maintain maximum possible distance from enemy warships. The tactical shift is measurable. 1942, Japanese submarines sink Allied ships at a rate of 12 per month in the Pacific. 1943, 8 per month. 1944, 3 per month. 1945, fewer than 1 per month. Some of this decline results from improved Allied anti-submarine tactics generally. Better radar, improved sonar, enhanced air cover, code-breaking success. But Hedgehog contributes significantly. Submarines that cannot rely on depth for protection must adopt ultra-conservative tactics. Ultra-conservative tactics reduce offensive effectiveness. By mid-1945, Japanese submarines pose minimal threat to Allied operations. The same pattern appears in the Atlantic. German U-boat effectiveness peaks in 1942. Admiral Dönitz's Wolfpack tactics sink Allied merchant ships faster than shipyards can replace them. But from 1943 onward, U-boat losses exceed new construction. By May 1943, Black May, the strategic equation reverses. Allied shipyards produce vessels faster than U-boats can sink them. Hedgehog is one tool among many that creates this reversal. Not the only tool, not even the most important tool in isolation. But when combined with improved radar, better sonar, longer-range aircraft, and enhanced tactical coordination, Hedgehog transforms anti-submarine warfare from probability management to precision hunting. The weapon that makes this possible was designed by men working in a requisitioned country house with limited resources. Millis Jeffress never sought fame. He wanted to solve engineering problems. Charles Goodeve wanted weapons that worked, regardless of whether they conformed to established doctrine. Together, they created a system that killed submarines with unprecedented efficiency. And they did it by questioning the fundamental assumption underlying depth charge warfare. The assumption that area saturation through explosive force was the only viable approach. Jeffress asked, what if we don't saturate an area? What if we target precisely and explode only on contact? The answer was the Hedgehog. After the war, Jeffress returns to civilian life. He receives awards for his wartime service, Officer of the Order of the British Empire. But he gives no interviews, writes no memoirs, publishes no papers about his weapons designs. He prefers mathematics and anonymity. He dies in 1963, largely forgotten outside specialist circles. Charles Goodeve continues in naval research. He receives a knighthood in 1946 for his contributions to weapons development. He remains active in scientific organizations until his death in 1980. Neither man ever claimed credit for transforming anti-submarine warfare. They built a weapon. Others used it. The results spoke for themselves. USS England returns to Purvis Bay on June 1, 1944. The crew receives the Presidential Unit Citation awarded for extraordinary heroism in action. Admiral Ernest King, Chief of Naval Operations, sends a message. There'll always be an England in the United States Navy. His pledge is fulfilled in 1960 when DLG-22, a guided missile frigate, receives the name USS England. The original England continues in service through 1945. She escorts convoys, provides anti-submarine screening for carrier groups, participates in the invasion of Okinawa. On May 9, 1945, a Japanese kamikaze aircraft strikes England's superstructure. The crash kills 37 crew members. Damage is severe, but not fatal. The ship survives. Repairs are underway when Japan surrenders in August. England is decommissioned in October 1945. She's sold for scrap in 1946. The Hedgehog launcher is removed during decommissioning. No museum requests it. The equipment is either destroyed or sent to training facilities where it's eventually discarded. Nothing physical remains from the destroyer escort that achieved the highest single-ship submarine kill record in naval history. Lieutenant John Williamson, the executive officer who conducted the attacks, continues his naval career. He serves through the Korean War and into the early Cold War period. He retires as a captain in 1961. In 1980, he co-authors an article for Proceedings magazine describing England's patrol. He writes with precision and without embellishment. The facts are dramatic enough. He dies in 1989. Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton, England's commanding officer, receives the Navy Cross for his leadership during the May 1944 patrol. He continues in destroyer escort commands through 1945. After the war, he serves in various administrative positions. He retires as a captain in 1954. He dies in 1973. Neither officer ever claimed sole credit for England's success. Both emphasized the entire crew's training, preparation, and execution under combat stress. The Hedgehog itself continues in service long after World War II ends. The U.S. Navy retains the weapon through the 1950s. It's gradually replaced by more advanced systems. SROC, anti-submarine rocket, enters service in 1961. Hedgehog launchers are removed from ships during modernization programs. The Royal Navy develops successors. Squid, a 3-barreled mortar launching larger depth charges, enters service in 1943. Limbo, a gyro-stabilized 3-barrel system, firing 350-pound projectiles to 1,000 yards, appears in the 1950s. Both weapons use automated fire control and improved targeting, but both employ the same principle Jeffress pioneered: fire forward while maintaining sonar contact, ensure accurate targeting, kill efficiently. By the 1960s, homing torpedoes replace mortar systems entirely. A torpedo can search independently for submarines, track them acoustically, and detonate on contact. The Hedgehog becomes obsolete. Most examples are scrapped. A few survive in museums. The National Museum of the U.S. Navy in Washington displays one Hedgehog launcher, the USS Slater. A preserved destroyer escort in Albany, New York, has a Hedgehog installation. The USS Silverside's Submarine Museum in Muskegon, Michigan, exhibits Hedgehog projectiles. These are museum pieces, now artifacts from a technological arms race that transformed naval warfare. But the principle endures. Modern anti-submarine weapons still emphasize precision over saturation. Whether torpedoes, rockets, or guided missiles, contemporary systems target specific submarines with accurate fire control rather than blanketing areas with explosives. The Hedgehog pioneered that approach. For submarine commanders, in 1943 and 1944, the weapon represented an existential shift. Depth no longer guaranteed safety. Evasion techniques perfected over years of combat became obsolete overnight. The only reliable defense was avoiding detection entirely. And once detected, the mathematics became brutal. A 65-pound projectile carrying 35 pounds of torpex explodes. On contact with the pressure hull, the hull ruptures. Water floods in at 400 gallons per minute. The crew has 90 seconds. After that, physics takes over. Pressure increases. With depth, structural integrity fails. Compartments flood. The submarine plunges or surfaces. Either way, the crew dies. German submariners called it der lautlose Tod, the silent death. Japanese submariners had no specific term. They simply learned to fear American destroyer escorts. Any ship with the characteristic steel frame on the foredeck. The frame with 24 spigots arranged in rows. That shape meant Hedgehog. And Hedgehog meant no second chances. The Battle of the Sea. Atlantic turned on multiple factors. Code breaking, ultra-intelligence, long-range aircraft, B-24 Liberators closing the mid-Atlantic air gap, improved radar, centimetric radar detecting surfaced submarines at night, enhanced sonar, better range and accuracy, and weapons like Hedgehog that killed submarines efficiently once detected. No single factor was decisive, but together they shifted the strategic balance. By mid-1943, U-boats could no longer sink Allied merchant ships faster than shipyards produced them. By 1944, Allied forces could hunt and destroy submarines with reasonable confidence of success. By 1945, German submarines operated with such caution that their offensive effectiveness approached zero. The Pacific Submarine War followed a similar trajectory. Japanese submarines peaked in effectiveness during 1942. After that, improved American anti-submarine capabilities eroded their impact. By 1944, Japanese submarines contributed minimally to Japan's defensive strategy. By 1945, they were largely irrelevant. The Hedgehog was one weapon among many that created these outcomes, but it was the weapon that submarine commanders feared most, because it was silent until it killed. The mathematics that governed submarine warfare for 4 years, from 1939 through 1943, were based on probability. Drop enough depth charges in the right area, and, statistically, some will damage the submarine. The submarine survives through evasion and depth. Move fast, dive deep, outlast the attacker's weapons supply. Hedgehog changed the mathematics to binary, hit or miss. If it hits, the submarine dies. If it misses, the submarine survives. No middle ground. No cumulative damage, no probabilistic calculations about shockwave propagation through water at various distances and depths, just direct contact and immediate death. Submarine commanders could not adapt to binary mathematics because binary mathematics allowed no adaptation. You either evaded the entire pattern or you died. Partial success meant nothing. Near misses counted for nothing. Only complete evasion mattered. And complete evasion against a weapon that fired 24 projectiles in an optimized pattern while maintaining continuous sonar contact was statistically unlikely. The numbers proved it. 17.5% success rate for Hedgehog attacks, 1 in 6 attacks killed a submarine. Compare with depth charges at 1.5%, 1 in 80 attacks achieved kills. The 11-fold improvement was not incremental technological advancement. It was paradigm shift, from area saturation to precision targeting, from probabilistic damage to binary outcome, from giving submarines opportunities to escape to eliminating those opportunities entirely. This is how technology changes warfare, not through dramatic revolution, not through single wonder weapons that win wars alone, but through incremental improvements that shift tactical equations enough to alter strategic outcomes. The Hedgehog didn't win the Battle of the Atlantic by itself, but it made winning possible by transforming anti-submarine warfare from guesswork into science, from luck into skill, from hoping depth charges landed close enough to kill into knowing that direct hits would kill, and direct hits, with improved sonar, better fire control, and enhanced training, became achievable. Submarine commanders in both Germany and Japan recognized what was happening. Their after-action reports, their operational directives, their private diaries, all document the shift. The weapon that explodes only on contact. The weapon that reaches us regardless of depth. The weapon that kills without warning. They had no effective counter. Dive deeper, you die. Evade aggressively, you die. Maintain depth, you die. The only option was to avoid contact entirely. And avoiding contact meant abandoning offensive operations, which meant losing the war. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.